It is time, okay? It is finally time, because for too many years, I've been putting off this very DIY project. And you know what? I said to myself today, no more. Because every day I walk into my home and I look around and I think, oh my goodness, it's filled with so much vintage loveliness and 1940s charm. It's so period. But her, I walk through her and I just think to myself, she is not giving me what I need her to give me. So today we're going to rectify that. I have a dream, okay? And my dream is transforming this UPVC front door into my vintage dream door. And you know it's going to be 1940s inspired. So the vision is a deep green and also zhuzhing up all of the gold accents, adding a vintage door knocker and also adding some faux stained glass. It's going to be a project and a half, but as the only exterior door to this property, that's right, let me repeat that, this is the only entrance and exit to this entire property, I think she needs some TLC. I'm very excited. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have never DIY'd a front door in my life, but you know what? Let's get cracking. Ho, ho, ho. So to take on this project, let me give you a little rundown of what we ordered. I don't actually know what each of these things are, so I will open them, and then when I realise what it is, I will talk about it. What is this? Tape, just to be able to section things off when I paint the door. Paint brushes, I think they're self-explanatory. And this is the smoothing kit, so that when we install the faux stained glass, we can smooth it into place. Oh yes, gold spray paint, just to give the door handle and the letterbox a little bit of a refresh, if you like. A box, no I'm joking, just a box within a box, within a box, within a box. Need it be so, oh Nelly. Okay. And finally, a lovely deep green paint, and the colour is, where is the colour? It's just called Green Gloss. I thought I had a more fancier name than that when I ordered it online. As you can see, it's a really deep green that we're going for, as our inspiration is front doors that you would typically see in the 1940s, and a lot of them tended to be a deep green, or at least they were according to the Imperial War Museum. The only other thing we ordered was a door knocker that we got off eBay second hand, and of course the faux stained glass itself, which actually hasn't arrived yet, but I'm going to start the project anyway. I will list the total spend for this DIY project somewhere in this video. But before we touch any of this, we need to do a little bit of prepping in the kitchen. So we need to move everything out the way and of course clean the door before we start painting. Okay, so to prep this space, I'm going to be moving the indoor doormat out the way. I'm going to be laying down some old sheets, and I'm going to be using sugar soap to actually clean the door. And this is where I introduce you to dilemma number one of living in a small old house. And when I say small, I mean period. They're not just small, they are nooky. And that's what makes them so charming. But it's also what makes a DIY project of this scale a little bit more challenging, because you can't exactly spread out whilst you do your work. Anyway, after going in with a Q-tip to really get into the crevices of the door and remove all those decades of muck, because I need that kind of sixth sense of satisfaction, I wiped everything down one more time and then asked myself, when was the last time this door was actually cleaned? Then it was time to section everything off with tape, because I didn't want to get paint on the glass. And I'll be honest with you now, I'm not necessarily a crafty person and my painting is not neat. I feel like I'm wrapping up my door for Christmas. Okay, check this out. This is the nicest green. Look at that. It's absolutely gorgeous. Oh my goodness, that is the nicest green. I really, really like that. That's going to look so good. Yeah, that's perfect. And then it was showtime and time to paint my door with this first layer of beautiful green. But please, if you do paint anything that is UPVC, make sure that you buy UPVC paint so that you get the right kind of coverage, because this kind of material is notoriously hard to paint over. And actually, seconds into using this purpose-made paint, I realised that it was still going to need a lot of coats to look right. But after perseverance, the first coat was on the bottom half of the door, and so I moved onto the top half of the door. And whilst leaving all that to dry, I ventured out into the very chilly weather conditions outside to repeat the exact same process but on the exterior side of the door, before my brain temporarily stopped functioning. And then on the interior, with everything still drying and before I added a second coat, I went in with the gold spray to the door handle and the letterbox. Okay, the first very rough coat is on, and I have sprayed the door handle and the letterbox with gold spray paint just to freshen them up. I'm wondering whether to spray these hinges in gold as well to make it look like the hinges are gold. I'm not sure if that's going too far. Not really sure yet. But the paint is dry now, so I think we are ready for a second coat. I have to say, I was feeling much better about life in general when the second coat went on, because the first was so patchy and it seemed just to be sliding off the UPVC. But on reflection, I think that's because I was going in a little bit too thick. But this time I really took my time, and whilst I left all that to dry, I went outside again with my gold spray to apply it to the exterior door handle, letterbox and bell. And then, as is the nature with DIY, because it's mainly trial and error, in my infinite wisdom, I thought that this walking aid would look so much better if it was painted gold. FYI, it didn't, but don't worry because we'll be dealing with that later. And so I went in with the first coat of paint on the exterior side, and I'd already taped everything off as I'd done on the interior. And before I knew it, the first coat was on the exterior side of the door, and although it looked incredibly patchy, I now knew to trust the process. Okay, so we've probably got about an hour of light left out there, and I don't think I envisioned that the painting part of this process would take quite so long, but I've been at this for a good few hours, and there are still many coats of paint left to go. I'll just show you. So this is the inside, which is starting to take shape, I think, really well, but the outside has still got a lot of layers of paint to go. In fact, both sides of the door have. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to have to let it dry for a little bit before I tackle it again. By that point, it will probably be dark. So I'll probably just keep on painting and then check in with you when we're on to the next stage of the DIY process. So we had a slight change of plan. Originally, I was thinking of spraying the walking handle, walking aid gold.
But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
Making it a little bit bougie. And then I thought to myself, you know what? I'd rather it not be there at all, but I don't have an electric drill. So I thought to myself, there is no way I'm going to be able to get that thing out with only a screwdriver. But lo and behold, I have done it. And I say that with a smile on my face, but these were so difficult to remove. Like, I can't imagine how many decades they've probably been sat snugly in that wall. And then there was me with my teeny little screwdriver. One more to go. Just doing my best. Some of the gold spray paint went on the bricks by accident, but I'm not going to worry about that too much. I'm just going to try and sugar soap it off as best I can. But in the meantime, I need to get painting before I lose light again. So as the painting process is long and mind-numbingly boring, I'm going to leave the door to dry for a moment. I think both sides of the door have now had their fourth coat of paint, and I'm going to move on to something a little bit more exciting, because if I'm correct, this should be my faux stained glass. That is not what I expected at all. Let's have a look. Okay, I like that. I didn't trust the process, but actually that is very sweet. I don't know, when I opened it, it just looked like it was going to be like wallpaper, but no. I mean, it's got a film on the back side of it that you take off before you stick it to your window, so it's probably going to be even better than this. But no, I think that's quite charming. And the thing is with faux stained glass, if you get it from a company that makes faux stained glass, like a company dedicated to producing faux stained glass, it is wildly expensive. Like, I measured the door, and then I ordered the exact measurements from a faux stained glass company. I had one piece of faux stained glass for the top window and then two for the longer windows. And it was over £85. £85 for 3 bits of faux stained glass plus shipping. And I was just not willing to pay that. Yes, the quality was beautiful, don't get me wrong, and it was made to measure, of course, but I just didn't really have that kind of budget. And so I went to Amazon and I tried to find a stained glass pattern that I still liked, that was still giving me, you know, the kind of vintage kind of feel that I needed, but was a hell of a lot cheaper. And I got 3 rolls of the stuff for, well, a lot cheaper. I feel like this is going to be a very much trust the process kind of activity, but you know what? We're not going to give up hope. You know, when the sun's shining through that, I mean, it could be beautiful. Okay, so I'm freaking out a little bit because I do not want to mess this up, but I have the measurements of the windows on the doors, helpfully written on this old envelope, and I need to now cut the stained glass to size. I'm guessing this is why made to measure is more expensive, because You don't have to cut it yourself, and I'm really, really nervous about it going wrong, basically. I don't even have a ruler to help me get everything neat, so I'm going to be using the side of an incense tray. And I have my scissors and my Sharpie and my tape measure and a knife just in case, and we're just going to do our very best. I gotta go double check that. I'm already panicking. Thank goodness this faux stained glass was actually really easy to work with, because there was a layer of film at the top of it, which you would remove later, that I could mark with a Sharpie to make sure I was getting the correct measurements, and it was also really easy to cut through. And better than that, it is also sturdy and hard wearing, because I swear I was crawling all over this thing trying to make sure I got the right measurements. Dare I say it, it looks like it's worked. Let me see if I can just use this, seeing as it's already kind of cut, as the second piece of stained glass, because we've got a nice straight edge on this side, so we might as well make the most of that. And what I'll probably do is use this piece as a template, I think, and just kind of cut around it so they're exactly the same size. In fact, I was so confident that I even cut 2 sets of the stained glass just in case I went wrong the first time, and also to have made to measure sections as spares. Now we got to do the wide window. Okay, the wide window is 69 centimeters wide by 24 centimeters long. So do I do it so the pattern is sideways, or do I keep the pattern upright, the same as the long windows? I don't know. Okay, it's got to be sideways. That's it decided. I was wondering, since I'd cut 2 sets made to measure, whether to have faux stained glass on the interior and exterior of the door, but that's not really how you use it. You see, there's a pattern that's meant to face outwards, so that when you look in, you're getting the clearest side of the pattern. And also, if you stick your stained glass on the inside, that means it won't be damaged by the weather or an aggressive window cleaner. Somehow this is working. I really don't know how. Okay, we have done it. We have finally done it. All of our stained glass is cut to size, and now it's time to install it, which I have never done before. I'm very excited about this bit. After removing the tape, which always weirdly scratches an itch for me, I just had to make some minor touch-ups where the paint had peeled before I cleaned the windows in preparation for installing the faux stained glass. The first instruction is to wet the glass quite a lot, and so having a spray bottle to hand is really helpful, and then you lay the stained glass onto the glass, line it up to make sure it's exactly where you want it to be, and then start smoothing it out. It is recommended that the more water the better, because that will help the stained glass stick into place, and so don't go sparingly on the water. And then if you're anything like me, don't get halfway through a project before realising that you've put the stained glass on the wrong way round because you didn't properly read the instructions, where it clearly stated that the static side should be stuck to the window and the rough side should be facing you. Like I said earlier, thank goodness that this stuff is hard wearing and also really easy to remove and reposition. So I'm an absolute donut, so when I was putting them on, I was thinking to myself, these don't seem to be sticking quite right, but when I turned them around, they didn't look quite right from the inside. So I was like, what am I doing wrong? Anyway, long story short, I did have them on the wrong way. And even though from the inside they look more frosted, the reason it's definitely this way and not the way I initially tried was because of how it looks from outside. You see? You see how great that's starting to look? So that is why you put the static side on the glass, which is a clearer picture, and it's starting to look really good, and the kind of rougher side is the one that faces you on the inside. We're really getting there now. We just need to add a few touch-ups to the exterior, but the interior is pretty much there, bar a few little bits and bobs. But the great thing about doing this in broad daylight is I can see on the exterior where needs touching up a lot easier. But we are We are really on our way now. I'm very impatient, so waiting for the paint to dry before I can go in again just drives me mad, but it is the best thing to do, for sure. Otherwise you'll have too much paint and it'll end up wiping itself off, which is equally annoying. Okay, so a couple of more things. I've painted the doorbell green, but I've left the actual bell button gold because I'd spray painted it before I did the rest of the door. So that just needs a second coat and that will be done. And then the other thing was, obviously with me going to all this trouble to install faux stained glass, I obviously wanted a lot of light coming from this small hallway so that from the outside it looked even prettier. And then I remembered my mum said to me she'd recently found and bought a new vintage lamp on eBay, and so she was intending for it to go in the living room, but I think this now has a place in the hallway because it's so sweet, but it more importantly gives off a really good light which hopefully you'll be able to see through the stained glass. And then it was finally time to give that vintage thrifted door knocker that we found on eBay a new lease of life by reaching for the Brasso. I've lost him. Where the hell is he? I'm unattended. Where did he go? I need an adult. And so my boyfriend, who'd actually just popped over to help me drill the holes in the door for the door knocker, as he's the one with the electric drill, just couldn't pass up on the opportunity of making this guy look as good as new. With a scrub here and a scrub there, we gave this little guy some tender love and care which he probably hadn't seen in years. And the reason that he's perfect for our door is because he's quite small, so he'll fit perfectly just above the peephole. And after some good old-fashioned elbow grease, he went from this to this. The light is absolutely dying on us again, and it is only 10 to 4, but I wanted to pretty much end this DIY project by adding our last finishing touch, our vintage owl door knocker. Yes, can you believe it? After 2 days of solid work and pretty much not thinking about anything else, this project has finally come to a close, and now I get the satisfying job of adding this last vintage finishing touch. And so tell me, who's ready for the big reveal? Okay, hear me out. I could not be more thrilled with how this DIY project turned out. I mean, will you just get a load of her? I mean, she looks like an entirely new door. She looks like she's made of wood, and she looks more traditional and period and more in keeping with this home, which is what I truly wanted. And bar a couple of the fixtures and fittings, she looks very 1940s, which was the original inspiration. I am so thrilled with her. I mean, this stained glass, it turned out great. It goes really well with the deep green. Don't get me wrong, it's not perfect, but I think rather than getting an entirely new replacement and spending a lot of money, I think she's turned out great. Like when I'm in other parts of the house and I glance over and I just see her and not that whitewash of UPVC, it just adds so much more charm to this little space, and it gives me such a treat. And she's got a little door knocker on the other side, and it's just filled my heart with so much joy. For one, it's been nice concentrating on a project for 2 solid days and not looking at my phone and thinking of nothing else, just having something to do, having a task to complete. I think that's been really quite healthy for me mentally, but also I'm thrilled with the way she's turned out. Like, honestly, I just think she looks the bee's knees. You know what's just struck me? She is giving off Ethel and Ernest vibes. If any of you guys have read that beautifully illustrated book or seen the film, I warn you, if you're going to do either of those things, and prepare to be absolutely heartbroken. But she's kind of giving that vibe, that kind of homey, I think the book is actually set in the 40s or 50s actually, but that kind of homey feel, that kind of nostalgic feel, that kind of the door you'd open to your grandparents' house kind of feel. That's what she's given me. She is like the door. I don't even know if the door from Ethel and Ernest even looks like her, but in my mind it does. Anyway, that's the energy that she's given off to me, if that makes sense to anybody except myself. I cannot tell you how much fun I had doing this project, and it was so satisfying to be able to refurbish a perfectly good door rather than order a new one in, plus it was much more cost effective. But even better, I finally have an entrance to my house that is much more in keeping with the feel of my home. A door that doesn't simply feel like you're stepping into a world of nostalgia, but one that says, "Welcome, dear friend. I'm so glad you're here. Won't you come in and I'll get the kettle on."